So yesterday for our video game, we were getting our touch input table working. So the idea here is we're changing our game from listening to one direction, like holding right on the keyboard on the arrow keys to move us right. We're going to change to WASD as well as touch devices. So I can't show you that we've got the touch working at the moment because that is on the iOS build. But yesterday we got it working just like this one. So any key we hold, it'll go in the input table in the order in which we hold it. So what's next is, there was 3 steps as far as I was concerned. It was get the inputs registered into the table. Then we need to sanitize the inputs, I guess is what I'm calling it. Like, if we hold left and right, we don't want our character to get the walking left information, like move us to the left and also move us to the right. Like, we want both left and right to output into nothing because they're directly contradictory. Same with up and down. So if we're up and to the right, then we want to do our diagonal movement. You know, if we're any diagonal direction, we want to do that, and that input list is fine. But if we get 2 contradictory ones, we don't want to change our direction. So that's the 3-step process is register the inputs, both for keyboard detection and touch detection. We got that done as of yesterday. Second step is sanitize the inputs into an output table. Third step is to update our player using the outputted table. So if right is in the output, then go ahead, update our character to be walking right. Handle its animation state change as well as location position change. So that's what we're going to be starting on today. We'll see how good we can do it. So we'll need to give ourselves an output list. Now, we did have to create 2 different tables for our input handling, one for touch, one for keyboard. So I'm going to come in here and call it an output list. I don't know if we want to do touch output list. I really don't know. We'll do it for now. Ideally, if I haven't decided this yet, because I do think some computers can have a keyboard as well as a touch element to it. So I don't know if I want to quite. I don't know if we are even going to bother with that. I don't know, but at least output list will be for keyboard and touch output list will be for touch devices. So hopefully we can do that. So we have a class for input handling. It probably should be called keyboard handling because touch is also an input, but okay. So at this point, right, in our class here, as we insert and remove directions, we want to add another thing, which is check for contradictory inputs, right? So it's almost like we need to, since we don't know what order the buttons could be pressed in, because we know left and right is a contradictory input. So maybe we can just do horizontal contradictory inputs. And we can say if input list at index 1. See, and I don't know, I know there's a better way to do this, because what I'm proposing here is like, we're going to check this if it's equal to left. And the next one equal to right. So if the first two values are contradictory inputs. Now, the reason I don't like this tactic is that we'd have to do it for if right is pressed first and if left is pressed second also. But let's just say output list gets flushed. And then otherwise, maybe we would say for key value in I pairs of our total input list, this is where we're going to go one by one and copy the input list. We're actually going to say table.insert into our output list the value of each of our inputs from our input list. So I think we might need to flush our output list from the get-go and then only copy the values from the input list, and then we flush it back to 0, back to empty if we have contradictory inputs. So let's try this. We'll get our output list rendering to the screen here. Let's see. Okay, we're printing up the output table, not the actual table. So we need to do our inspect here so we don't get the table, but what the table's contents are. Okay, output list. See how we're going. Our output is becoming what the input is, essentially. It's just that we basically want to... Okay, so see, I like this. If we hold left and right, our output is empty. If it's right, then left, it is not empty. So that's one reason I don't like this method, because we have to kind of check. I think before we do this, I think a good way might be to... What I want to do is I want to only count the last two inputs. So if we hold 3 inputs, I don't want all 3 inputs to be calculated. I want to truncate it down to the last 2 so that even if you hold all 4... Well, see, yeah, and then I guess if all 4 are held, I want nothing, right? Like, you just have to play nice. But if you hold 3, I don't think I want to do any movement. I think I just want to say, 3 inputs held, you're not going to have anything. As well as 4. Okay. So I guess the question is, if we hold 3 inputs, do we want the last 2 inputs to override? Or do we want it to be flushed to 0? It's a little tricky. Let's try to flush it to 0 if 3 inputs are held first, and then we'll see if that might give us any issues. So what I want to do for our output list is we start by emptying it, and then we're going to copy every input list into the output list. But then if the number of our output list, I guess we could say input list here. If the number of our input list is greater than 2, so 3 or 4 or more, then we want our output list to be flushed. Let's just see. Okay, 1 input, 2 inputs, 3 inputs, empty. Okay, and that clears it for 4 too. So if you try to walk 3 directions, it just stops. Does that make sense? Because I don't want yeah, if you're holding 3 inputs, you shouldn't be moving. I don't think. I think you need to, especially because on the Game Boy you can't hold 3 directions on the D-pad because it's a physical button. You just can't hold it. So I think it's okay that we kind of force this. If you have 3 inputs held, the output table is empty because you just can't hold that many. And then if you have contradictory inputs, it also doesn't output anything because left and right shouldn't change your direction because they would counteract each other anyway, but we don't want to be switching our players like idle state or anything at that point. So I think that's okay. So is this the best way to go about it? Well, our input list can't have more than 2 variables at this point. So I think we could use little local variables here to count contradictory inputs for horizontal. Let's try it like instead of this. My idea is, because I don't like the order thing here where it's like, oh, if the first input is left and the second input is right, I'm on either or, right? So I want to say that we want to cycle through our output list. Because right at this point, output list is a straight up copy of input list unless it's 3 or 4 inputs. So we can say for key value in I pairs of our input lists, actually output list, then we want to if the value is equal to a horizontal value, either left or value is equal to right, then we want to say like something like a horizontal contradictory input or a horizontal input increments by 1. So we'll say local horizontal input starts at 0. If any of the values in the output list are either left or right, we're going to increment this horizontal input. And then if our horizontal input is equal to 2, that means we have both left and right in our output table. Then we want to flush our output list because we have only contradictory inputs. So now I'm hoping it'll work for if it's a diagonal left up, our output is left up, that's right. But if we have left and right, our output gets flushed because they're contradictory. And if we hold right, then up, we get right up. But if we hold right, then left, we get the flushed output table. So that's looking right. So we just need to add that for the vertical as well. So we can say we could do a vertical input. Local vertical input starts off at 0. We check for a horizontal input or else if the value is equal to up or down, then we want to increment our vertical input. And then if horizontal input or vertical input, either of those are equal to 2, then go ahead and flush our output list. So let's see. Okay, it's looking right. I'm hoping this eliminates some of the jankiness of spamming a bunch of different buttons, because especially on a Game Boy, you can't hold more than 2 directions at a time. So if it's more than 2 directions, we just flush it. If it's contradictory, we just flush it. So the only moves that are possible are left, right, up, down, and then the diagonals. And that's good. So I think, hey Prosto, what's up? I think we need to do the same thing for our touch inputs here. This is good. I think this is good. Oh, shoot, man. I hope you'll figure it out. Okay. Okay. Does this make sense? We've got a bunch of code to just convert our input list into an output list. I'm not sure it's that pretty. We flush our output list at the beginning of every frame. It's going good, Prosto. I think it's going good. I'm a little worried about implementing the movement again with the new output table, but it should be straightforward. We just have a couple of bugs from the old version, so I think we're going to kind of want to go through it really slowly and make sure each part makes sense. But now that our input list gets converted to an output list of only like legit inputs, it should be a little more straightforward. It should be less buggy. I'm hoping, because there's a bunch of little weird things I haven't been understanding with the movement. So hopefully simplifying this for both touch devices and keyboard devices will make it smoother overall and a little more easy to understand. So that's what I'm hoping for. Yeah, I'm hoping it works. If it works, if the touch, I'm just excited for when the touch works, because then we can get the mobile deployment working like a Game Boy just on the website. That's going to be so dope, because it'll be so cool for people to come into the stream and they can say, what game are you doing, and I send them the website deployment and they can play on their phone right there. Like that would be really cool. And I feel like we're like 3 or 4 days from getting the mobile deployment working with touch. We're pretty close. One thing I don't know how to do is, if we have an output list for both a keyboard input and a touch output list for a touch input or our output, do we then update our player based on both of those tables at all times? Or do we just say, hey, if there is a value in our keyboard output list, then we're only going to worry about moving the player based on the keyboard output list, and we're going to ignore the touch output list? That's kind of what I'm thinking. I guess it also depends on... Yeah, we'll see. Because the only thing I'm thinking that'll screw up is if someone has like a laptop that's also touch and they want to toggle on the Game Boy version or the UI, because right here we have it where you can toggle the Game Boy version or just the keyboard version. So if they were on a touch device and they wanted to use the Game Boy version, we should allow them to be able to touch the Game Boy version and control, or switch back to... Yeah, I guess we could use the same toggle, right? We could use the toggle... Well, it's a little more complicated than that, because if... I feel like there might be some people who want to put the Game Boy UI on, but still play with the keyboard, because if you're on a PC, I would like us to be able to toggle the Game Boy version just because it. I think it'd be fun to add some like shaders or effects like the old green Game Boy. Look, if we can get like an Animal Well style CRT screen look, I think that'd be really cool. So we might allow that. I just don't know yet. Okay, so I'm gonna call this something like output list. Output list sanitation or input list sanitation. Yeah, there's a ton of options, Prosto, but I'm glad I'm kind of doing the grunt work of getting touch working now, because if we went much further and then needed to rehaul all the controls to support touch, we'd be screwed. So I'm glad we're doing it now. I think it's a perfect time in the development process to kind of knock that out, and then moving forward, it'll be super smooth, at least for the inputs. So, and then, you know, because the big thing of this game is like, I wanted to deploy it to Windows, Mac, and Linux, which we had that ability, but now deploying it to a website and deploying it, dude, yeah, Gamepad is another big one. I do want to do that. I don't know how that works with Love, but that is on the list for sure. So I think that's more of a Steam thing. Is that right, Prosto? Do you have any experience with that? Yeah, I know. It'll that's what I'm expecting. That's what I'm expecting is it to take a couple of days. I was thinking that the gamepad support is more of a Steam solution. Like you have to do it once it's on Steam, or is it part of the Love2d build? I don't even know. I'm not sure how that works, but we'll get to it. Yeah, that's something I'm okay with putting off until we've got more game, because until we have at least one whole biome and level set up, I don't think it's worth it to put the gamepad support just yet. But it is on the list. So we want to do something very similar, and we could turn this into a function, but for the touch handling, we want to do something very similar just with the other two tables, right? So in our touch handling, we've got this touch list, and we're doing our touch list propagation. Then we want to do this. Oh, how would we do this? Output list. So we have a touch output list, right? Touch output list, yeah. So any output list needs to be touch output list. And then any input list needs to be touch list. Is that right? Touch list. Any input list is touch list. Okay. This is going to be a little bit different, right? Because okay, but so the Love2d does have the ability to recognize gamepads, though. I guess that is kind of because I was thinking it was a Steam support thing, but okay, if Love2d's got it, then we're gonna go and rip off your code for it. We'll see how it is, because I mean, that's not something that I'm super passionate about figuring out, right? Where it's like I want our game to have that for accessibility, issues, but it's also just kind of, yeah, okay. That's kind of what I was thinking too, like the specifics of how it works with your game versus another. But like the basic raw input should be pretty simple. I'm hoping. I know every time you say that, it's just like, it's never going to be as simple as you think. Okay, so the issue here is our touch input is different than our D-pad keyboard input because we are populating the diagonals differently. So like there's, instead of on our keyboard, when we hold up and to the right, we're putting up and to the right into our output table. But on our touch, we're detecting a touch right here in the diagonal of up and right. And if you detect a diagonal in the up and right, then we go ahead and put both right and up into the input list. So I guess if that's okay, I think that's okay. I think it's okay that we kind of ripped it off. I think the next step is to print out our touch output list and then make a little build for our touch device, deploy it, and try it. Yeah. Hey, dude, yeah. Go ahead and fix that thing, dude, because I totally get that, you know? Yeah. Thanks for stopping in, dude. I'll catch you later. I know you'll figure it out. You'll figure it out. Yeah, see ya, dude. It is evening, but yeah, thanks, dude. Yeah, it's almost 8 p.m. here where I'm at. Okay. So as you can see, we've got a little touch table down there. It's just that we don't get it populated because we're not on a touch device. So we'll try it. Thanks, dude. Thanks. I'll catch you later, dude. Good luck with that. Okay, we've got this. So I've got to get my setup for the mobile deployment here, which includes an Elgato capture card, a Mac, and an iPhone all hooked up into Twitch here. So bear with me one sec. Okay, I need to find my phone cord. This is pretty sweet though, because I use Xcode to build a Love2d application, and then all I have to do is compile a .love from the current project, and then upload it to my phone here. So should be straightforward. Let's try it here. So we'll have to commit this. We'll say that this is touch and input, or touch and keyboard output tables. Okay, so we just get pushed it. Let's go swap over to the Mac. Okay, and then we'll try it here. Okay, we just pulled our changes. We'll check our log so we know that we got the commit we just pushed. And then now we will zip it up as a mobile.love. And what that gives us here is in here we've got a mobile.love. We'll come into here. It's just Finder on our phone here. This is that Xcode compiled love build. So I will delete this and we will re-put our new build into it. And now we should be able to test it on the phone here. So let's see. Okay, we did not full screen it, but our touch output table is populating here. So see, this is what I was talking about. Like we only hit the diagonal touch, but the output table knows it's up and to the left. So if we were to try to do left and right, see, it should turn into no input there. So that's not working. If we have left, if it's two inputs and we have contradictory inputs, we need it to flush the table. So it's not quite working, but it's close. Yeah, if there's only two inputs and they're contradicting, then we need to flush it. So let's try to do that. Let's see what's wrong about that. Okay, this is our input handling, not our touch handling. So let's go swap over to that. We're cycling through our touch output list that we just copied everything from our touch list into. If it is greater than 2, we need to flush it. Okay, so touch output list, is that what we're doing in our input handling? Debug here. Touch output list, that's what we need. We were just doing our input list, so let's try that. Output list, and that is in our input handling. So let's swap it back to the Mac and we'll just change it right there. We don't need to do a commit. Okay, right here, instead of touch list, it is touch underscore output list. And then we'll go into our main and full screen it for the iPhone here while we're at it. Okay. So now we've got those two changes. We are going to zip it up in a mobile.love and retry our mobile deployment here. Let's give it a shot. Okay, full screen now. Touch, up left, left. Okay, if I hold right, should be nothing. Yes. Okay, and then if I hold 3 directions, it doesn't do anything, which to me feels right, because on a Game Boy, you can't hold left and up and to the right. You just can't on the D-pad. The hardware won't let you. So I think it's okay that that would be flushed. And same with up and right and up left. You just can't do that on the Game Boy. But if you hold up and up right, you're getting just up and right, which is right. Okay, so then if we have contradictory inputs for up and down, it's also canceling out. So that we're only ever able to have, we kind of force the player to play nice. Because look, the touch table that's getting populated with all those up, down, left, and rights, that's what we're like registering. That's what I'm calling the unsanitized input. And then the touch list on the bottom, that is what I'm calling the sanitized input, so that it forces the player to kind of play nice. Like, hey, if you're going to hold more than 3 buttons, you're not getting any output. We're gonna sanitize your input, turn it down, smush it down into the output we think is appropriate, and then just do our player animation based on this sanitized input instead of a bunch of random stuff. Because before we were doing this stuff where we're like, if our input list was 3, then check what our last 2 directions were and change our walk state to be the last direction of the whatever. What is that, K-Tron? To sanitize them? Or you just kind of like force them. It's kind of like I don't know what it's like. It's like they're capable of doing a lot of stupid stuff. So you're kind of like putting a little gutter. What is it called? The bumpers for bowling. You're kind of giving them the bumpers. It's like, hey, listen, you can't do this stupid stuff in the other lane, okay? Like, stick to your own lane. You live right here, all happy, okay? Then you just have fun with your little bumpers, all right? This is looking right. Okay, this is huge. So now we've got that. We aren't registering. We aren't rendering the button presses, but I know we are detecting these still. We have detection objects for here. We should try to get these back. We know they're working because look at our select is working when we pull up our help menu. So we know that there is a button there on our select at least. And then I did some mock-ups for the inventory UI, and I'm really happy about it. So once we get moving, once our character's moving, we're going to start to bring in inventory system so that we can hit start, pull up our inventory system, switch items, and then that'll be how we trigger the loot. Is you have to be holding the loot, and then you hit whatever button you toggled it to. So right now, I think let's try to get our button rendering back for A and B. Even though we are detecting it as a touch, I would like the feedback of the button being touched. And then we're at a really good spot to start to do the player movement based on this new touch list. So this is going well. Let's take a look at how we are rendering those buttons. We have a touch detection object. Oh, I know exactly how we do it. We have touch detection objects of all the buttons, but some of them are D-pad and some of them are not D-pad. So if we look at our input handling, where is it? We have we brought out the D-pad into the touch handling and then buttons. So see how we have a D-pad and other buttons that aren't D-pad. A, B, select, start. So here we need to register our touches for the buttons and not just D-pads, and then also render the buttons and not just D-pads. So let's go see. We are changing them to be false. See, we need to do this for buttons too. So for every button in our, and we can switch this to I pairs of buttons because it's an array. Come on. We're going to flush them to be false. first. Then we're going to cycle through and for button in I pairs of buttons, for index touch in pairs touch, if the button collides with the touch, that very button is pressed, break, because we know it's already pressed. But we weren't... Oh, and you know what? How are we doing this? We were doing this for select already, so how was it working for select? That's a great question. I don't know how it was working for select. Oh, it's right here. Okay, so in our callback, see, and this is weird. In our callback for a touch press, we're saying, hey, if we're colliding with the buttons table, which is what I thought was impossible. So yeah, that makes sense. Because we're hard coding it into the callback, which I don't necessarily like. So, yeah, I don't know of a way to do that without toggling it every single time. I don't know. But now, once, you know, we're flushing them to false, we're setting the buttons to be pressed if they are being collided with, then we just need to render each button in our pad if it's pressed. So we can say for all of our buttons, go ahead and render the button, and it'll only render the button if that button is pressed. So we should have the AB select and start appearing on the phone now. Let's just double check. We're gonna say that this is add button renders for AB start select. You know, yeah, Get Fugitive is growing on me. I like it. It's nice to stay in NeoVim and do my Git, you know. So let's go here. What we'll do is, dude, where is my mouse? Okay, we're going to zip up our game, and then we're going to put it back on our phone. We forgot the full screen. That's okay. You can see the B button works there. Let's get our full screen back. That was totally my bad. It's because our PC build doesn't have that full screen enabled. We only really want it for production style deployments, but we're kind of testing a production deployment right now, so. All right, we're gonna rezip it. Try it again. See, like, that's nice that the whole build process is that fast, so that's cool. All right, now we're full screen. We got our touch input sanitized, which is nice. See, like, if you're playing the game like this, which shouldn't be possible on a real Game Boy, our touch table output is not generating. So, like, all that junk up there, we're not allowing the player to get away and try to trick our game into thinking that that's a legit input. You just have to play nice, like a normal Game Boy person. Okay, and then we got the button rendering for A and B, so that's looking right. And then select and start. See, we knew it was working, but we were manually doing it for that button. So I don't know if I like that. I don't know of a better way though, because we only want to toggle that on and off upon one press, like upon a touch pressed, not a touch is down, because we had that like seizure, like every frame 60 times a second flicker this on and off when we didn't have it in the callback. So okay, this is looking great. And what's super good is, like, as far as I can tell, there's no, I think there's a 5 touch limit. So if we have 5 touches like that, it can register 5 unique touches at once. But if you try to do 6, it just kind of negated all of them. Okay. Sweet. That's huge, that's huge, that's huge. That's looking awesome. We could put this on the website. I don't think I want to yet. We're so close to getting it working with moving. I think we should just hold off until that. I'm pretty content with this touch output sanitized. I think that's right. So let's see here. Hey, what's up? Hey, oh, hey. Thank you for the raid. That was a surprise. Hey, welcome in. We just got, here, I'll show you. We'll switch over to the other deployment. How'd you guys' stream go? What were you working on? Yo, double raid. Thanks, guys. That's dope. Thank you. This is what we got working today. We've got what I'm calling the sanitized input. So like on a touch device, the top touch table there is the raw inputs that are being detected, but the bottom touch table is what I'm calling the sanitized output, so that you can't just put in a bunch of random inputs and freak out our character, because our movement and our animation is all tied to this output table. So we're taking in this touch list and we are sanitizing it. So if you don't play nice by pressing a bunch of buttons, our touch output list is limited. So if you play nice with one thumb using the D-pad, it knows, okay, you're going right or left, you're going up and to the left, and then if you hold contradictory inputs, like left and to the right, it's gonna flush out that contradictory input. So you still could do up and right, that's a valid input, but if you try to do up and to the left and up and to the right, it's not going to let you do it. So that is the second step of the 3-step process for getting our touch device controlling our character here. So now all that's left to do is to take this output table and now update our player based on the output table instead of based on a keyboard press. Yeah, thanks. It's just the old printf debug, right? It gets the job done. Thanks, guys. Hey, I hope you guys had a great stream. Thanks for the raid. I appreciate it. So we can take a look at the current. I left us a note called rehaul input. So anything with this input rehaul is what we need to take our output list and start moving our player with the new output list, our new sanitized output list. Yo, making a Tamagotchi fan game. Is that real? New to programming, what is sanitizing? That's just what I'm calling it. Like, it's basically like making the player play nice. So instead of holding contradictory inputs and trying to confuse my player's walking state for which direction they should be facing, if they're contradictory inputs, we're just going to say, you know what, we're not actually going to move because you're holding too many buttons to control them. So that's just kind of the plan. Hey, I will check that out. That is cool. Tamagotchi. That sounds awesome. But yeah, so it looks like we have anything we called rehaul here. Hey, thank you for the follow, Paradox. I appreciate that. I post I've posted every video. I've done this. Hey, follower goal met. Thank you, thank you. That is huge. Thank you, thank you. That's awesome. So I stream almost daily at 7 p.m. Mountain Time, and I'm going to I post all of the devlogs, all of the VODs on my YouTube channel at Finding Focus. So this game I built from scratch. You can see everything from episode 1 back in February. I think February 2nd was the first day we did any work on this game. So I post all the devlogs up there on YouTube so that you can see any part of the process that you're curious about. And what's cool is the if you go to the GitHub, you could kind of like see all the commits here. So if there's anything you're curious about, like, oh, how did we do songs for the loot system? You can come and see that, oh, this was on August 1st. So you can go onto the YouTube and look for the devlog for August 1st and then see that episode. So in our game, we have some music happening. So you can toggle like this loot system. So we have like some strings. So we've got like a little loot system. The debugging is kind of, hiding it, but I like being transparent about the whole process and trying to inspire people to make their own games, because I am one of those people who want to be inspired to make my own games. And I felt like there was not too many people kind of talking through this stuff for beginners. So I'm kind of teaching myself and talking myself through it as I teach myself how to do it. So that's the kind of introduction to the channel. I guess we can start looking at what the rehaul is going to look like. It looks like we have input detection in our scene class, in our player class, as well as our player walk state. So there's a bunch of different things to keep in mind. And the tricky thing here is we have global tables for our keyboard input as well as our touch input. And we need to make our player walk on using either of those tables. So I don't exactly know how we're going to trigger that, but lots of Thor shorts later. Yes. Yeah, exactly. Just start. I took the CS50 game dev course. I only got 2 episodes in. We made Pong and then Flappy Bird. And then from then on, I just started building my own stuff. So it really, you don't have to know a whole lot to just get started and do your own thing. So I highly recommend it. Just try to do it. And if you can do a game jam, try to do any game jam and try to get anything done. And that is huge. Okay, so let's see here. It looks like we used to have this thing. See, and this is the contradictory inputs I was like talking about. So like in our old way, we were saying if there are 4 inputs being held, then we're going to set our direction to be the last input that's held. We're not going to be doing that with this new way. I think I'm literally just going to say I think we only change the animation and direction upon any... Actually, yeah, I don't know how to do this. Well, like, we would only change it as long as there is an input. If there's no input, we don't update it, so it's just going to be whatever direction you were facing and whatever idle for whatever direction you are facing. And then here is the logic for when we're walking diagonally. If there's 2 in our input list, we're going to set our walk speed equal to the square root of 2 divided by 2 times our walk speed constant. Otherwise, our walk speed is just our normal walk speed. Okay. This is tough for me to wrap my head around because we're doing some old stuff here, like we're limiting our X position so that we can't be knocked off the screen. But if we collide with something, we move our X and Y position to be on another side of that collidable object, so we still are able to clip outside of screen, which Quellis showed off in his stream the other day. So we wanna fix that, but also that comes down to level design, because right now the levels I have are just kind of like crudely sketched on there, but ideally we don't have any. If we switch and like look at this, oh, I can't. I turned off walking because we're in the middle of rehauling this, so I can't really show it off. But the fact that the cabin is up in the top right here, that means that if we walk up, the top of this cabin will be able to be walked into if we walk down where that cabin is, right? So like that's what gets us into this issue of colliding. But we'll need to just design our levels better so that we don't clip out of bounds like that. So the other thing is, our game used to be, oh, your weakness is storytelling and you're broke. Okay, well, you know, I don't think you need story to make something fun. I think story can always enhance the thematic elements, but I definitely don't think you need story to make a fun game. And I think the more skills you build in game dev, I think you'll start to uncover more story elements that you want to include. So I think you're on the right track if you just pick small projects and start to build small projects. And then, you know, just keep making slightly better and better stuff. So we used to change our direction based on the last input, like right here, we used to change our direction to be the last input. We still can do that. Okay. One thing I'm thinking of is on the keyboard, if we walk right and then up, we face up. Like this. If we run this. Oh, and you know what? Yeah, we don't have input on any build right now, so I can't even demo this. But let's just try to modify our player's direction based on the last input. So if there is an input in the, or I should say output, if there is an output in the output table for keyboard, let's go ahead and change our player's direction to be that output and just see if that works. So that'll be in the player walk state, but then we don't trigger the player walk state unless there's something, right? Because we're in the idle state. Let's see what our idle state looks like. See how we're changing. Where do we change to a walk state? Okay, see, this is wrong. This is our old stuff. So we need to also add a rehaul input here to make sure we don't miss this. But for right now, let's say that we initialize the player in idle state. Then if any of our WASD is pressed, we'll swap us into a walk state. And then once we're in our walk state, let's just say if our input list, actually I'm going to be switching that up. It's our output list. Constants, where is it? It's this output list. So we have an output list and a touch output list. So let's go back to here. If our output list has more than 0 values, we're going to say, let's set our self player's dot direction to be equal to, and this is what was important, like the values in our output list are literally strings, left, up, right, down. So we can say input list, gosh, I always do this, output list now. It's an output list. We can say, let's just set it to the last variable. So what this number output list, if we're holding left and right, left and then right, then this is going to be 2. So we're saying output list at index 2 because there's 2 outputs. So we're indexing into our output list at index 2, and that's the string. Let's say the second direction was up. We're assigning up into the player dot direction. So let's see if we can change the direction, and then the direction doesn't actually change anything that that the player looks like, but we would have to, I think direction handles walking. So like if direction is up, then it'll actually start walking up. But we want to change our actual animation to be the idle up, or whatever that output list result is. So let's try that. Let's see. Player walk state 17. We just missed a closing parentheses there. Okay, check that out. Okay, so we have the direction of our player being registered. Now I'm curious, we'd have to make sure that this is working for touch. So for right now, I'm gonna scoot down the init of our player down a little bit so that he's not being covered by the debugging up there. I believe that is in our play state. We do like a character spawn right here. Yeah, so let's set our Y to be one more sprite size down so that he's not being covered. There we go. Okay, so let's see if we can get touch just changing our player's direction like it is for our desktop deployment. So what that's going to require is in our walk state, in our player walk state, yeah, we need to do this based on the touch output list as well. So any output list here, we're going to substitute with touch output. Okay, and then we need in our idle state to also do this. We basically want to cycle through the buttons. We want to say, because it'll be an idle, so let's cycle through. Now, does our player idle state I guess we can trigger this by saying if the number of touch output list is greater than 0, meaning there's a valid touch input, we're going to go ahead and change our entity into a walk state. And then once we're in the walk state, we are saying once we're in the walk state, then we're gonna change the direction to be the last touch output list. Okay, let's try this. So we're gonna add and commit and say that this is testing idle direction on touch devices. And then git push. And then we've got a whole pipeline set up where I can run one command and basically build the deployment for the web. So right now, it's not very interesting because it doesn't... If you go to tashio.dev, you can play with the arrow keys at least. You can play the current build on the website here. But we're hoping... Once we get this touch stuff working, that we can do it on touch devices too, because right now you can't really do crap on it on a touch device. So that's what we're trying to fix. So let's git pull our latest commit here, and then we will zip it as a mobile.love, and we'll plop it on our phone here to test. Look at that. Yes, yes, yes. This is awesome. I mean, this is, this is the start of the Game Boy version working with touch. So that's really exciting. One thing I'm not so sold on is I'm not sure the direction being set to the last value is necessarily right. Because if you look at this, like all three values, up and to the right, right, and down and to the right, all have right as the last input. So we're not changing direction on any of these. I guess it kind of makes sense because we are holding right. But if we extrapolate this to where we were actually moving, we would move down and to the right while facing right, and we'd move up and to the right while facing right. Is that what we want? I kind of feel like we should swap the diagonals to have up and down as the second variable there, so that walking up will be, you'll see the back of his head, and walking down you'll see the front of his face, so that we don't see the profile as much. I think that makes sense to me. Now it is a little bit different for the WASD, because it's a little easier to check which the issue is with WASD. We can say that we can have two different inputs, like we hold right and then down. But if we hold just the diagonal down on touch, we don't know what was pressed first. We don't know if down was pressed first or right was pressed first, because it's not really a thing. Like they're just held at the same time. So we can't really change our diagonal direction based on the last input, because you can literally hold a diagonal input with one touch of a button. So I think for the WASD, we'll still control it based on the last inputted direction. But for touch, I think I just want to swap so that we don't see his profile. We would see face up, face right, face down. And same thing with this side. Face up, face left, face down. And then this would be, you know, face down, face down, face down, and face up, face up, face up. So let's try to do that. I think it should be fairly easy. I think this comes down to our touch detection objects because it's actually when we initialize our touch detection objects for the D-pad. So let's go find our D-pad. It looks like it's right here. Yes. So for these two directions, I just want to swap these. So this will be left, this will be up, and then this will be right and up. And then this will be left and down. Okay. And then this will be right and down. So now when we do that hashtag touch output list, that will get the second value here. So now we're going to be getting this down, prioritizing up and down over the profile sides. So I think that makes sense. So let's go ahead and say that. Let's just say sweet. Let's try it. Yep, that's exactly what I wanted. So now walking down into the right and down into the left, he'll always be facing down. And then same with up. But if we're walking to like left and right, he'll prioritize his front and back. His front of his face and the back of his head. Sweet. Okay, let's try to get this deployed to the website, and we'll see. I want to turn off the debugging for the touch devices or touch detection. Let's see here. Where is that? Okay. My grep search is broke on Mac. I will need to fix that. I think it's on input handling. Yeah. So we just want to turn off our debug here for our input handling. And then we will turn off full screen for our web deployment, and then we'll try to just deploy it to the web so you guys can see that process, because it's pretty cool. Let's go find our main and make sure we're not full screen. Okay, so we've got our project where we want it for the mobile deployment. And all we've got to do is run build in this directory. So what that did is it compiled our .love, it moved our .love into a Love.js folder, it ran Love.js on our game, and it created a Tashio folder in Love.js, and then it moved the Tashio.love into that Tashio folder, and it made it ready for deployment. So what that means is on our Tashio.dev folder here, it made this. This is updated now. See, 8:28 p.m. That's when we ran the script. So it made this WebAssembly, this Love.js, Game.js, game data, and this is the folder that we need to upload on our server to deploy our game. So if we open up WebStorm here and go to our Tashio.dev deployment, we just need to go upload these 5 files to our server. We can say, oh, deployment is grayed out. Okay. Okay, I've never seen this before. I've never seen this. What is this? Diff? I don't want... I just want to upload it. Like, just upload it, dude. Don't want to sync it. Just upload it. Alright, let's just say... I've never seen this. I just updated WebStorm, so I think this is just a new thing. Okay, well, let's see. Let's see if it worked. Check that out. Okay, great. Now, what we failed to do was do the correct scale factor. We forgot that because on my phone, I have a tiny phone. It's just way too big. But look, this is running on our website. I can't even show you the URL, but Tashio.dev. Oh my gosh, this is annoying. We gotta fix this. Okay. We'll fix this. That's one thing I forgot, is we need to change the scale factor. So what we'll do is we'll have to rebuild. It'll be easy. We just remove that build. We come into our constants here. And we change this scale factor to 2. And that just makes the game smaller. And it works better on mobile. So let's run build again. And it goes, and it says game files ready for deployment. So if we come in here, we can just say, we'll just make sure this kind of refreshes. And we'll say, let's deploy these new files to the website. See, that's the button I was looking for. There we go. So it should be deployed. Let's check it out. We'll come in here to Tashio.dev. And there we go. Yes, yes, yes. Sweet. And then check this out. If we hold contradictory inputs, it doesn't face them the other way. Because you're holding two different directions. But if you're holding it and then let go, it'll start walking left or whatever. So now Tashio's actually changing direction based on the touch input. So this is just kind of a proof of concept to make sure that the Game Boy UI makes sense and works on a mobile deployment for the web. We need to fix the scaling probably a bit much still too, because the URL here gets in the way. So either we need to smush the Game Boy UI to be a little smaller so it works a bit better, or we can scale it down a little bit further. Hi Walladu, what's up? Sweet. So yeah, ideally, I'm hoping in the next 3 days or so, I'll figure out how to get the Tashio moving completely based on only touch. But right now, even if you guys were to go to the website right now, you can play using the arrow keys, and you can play. I mean, there's still not a lot to do, right? Like we're just getting the bones of the game working. It's like we've got these geckos you can kind of interact with. We've got pits you can fall into. We've got, you can walk in the hut here, but you can't do anything just yet. We haven't done anything like that. But then we've got 100 screens of like boilerplate, like template pixel art that we just kind of crudely painted on there just to show that we're handling these screens one at a time. And then we've got the loot system on here too, which we need to rehaul for Game Boy inputs. But I'm very bad at it. We'll have to rehaul that for Game Boy, because right now it's using 4 fingers for the strings and 4 fingers for the frets. Maybe using virtual height units on values for CSS for the scaling issue. That is what I'm wanting to do. It's just that the deployment, like basically like for the game to run on the web here, it has to be kind of compiled and then set. Like the virtual height that you're talking about is something we would get from the browser, but I don't yet know if we can say, hey, let's use JavaScript to grab the screen dimensions of the browser and pass that into our Love game. I don't know how to do that and kind of set the window width and height based on the browser width and height. I don't know if it's possible to talk JavaScript to Love in that way. I'm hoping we can figure that out though, because I think that is a good idea, and that's how I would want it to do. Because people have different sized smartphones, so I would like it to work on everyone's device. We'll just have to play around with that a bit more too. But so for right now, we're at a good spot. We got touch detection, registering and sanitizing input. We've got the very bare bones of just changing our direction and animation based on the last input, which is huge. And then we've got get log. Yeah, swap the direction of Tashio. Okay, and then we got a little web deployment going. So I'm gonna call it a night. Thanks for tuning in, everyone. Thanks for the raid, you guys, Quellis and Code. I appreciate you guys. We'll raid out here to Hypnotic Games, because he's always making some cool stuff. And he's a fellow game dev who's always making stuff, so I like giving him a raid. But thanks for tuning in. I'll be back here tomorrow. We'll get some movement on screen, hopefully. And then we'll continue to figure out our problems. And then I'll be making a channel trailer here soon. Yeah, thanks for all the love, guys. Thanks for all the follows. Thanks for the raid. Thanks for the first time chat, Walladu. I appreciate you guys. Hope you all have a good night. And enjoy the raid. Peace out.